Okay, hello everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Or would you prefer if I use a mic? Okay, that's fine. Sounds like you're hearing me okay. Today I'm going to speak about a topic about why do we need a Black Valley. Before that, I'm just going to introduce myself. So my name is Leke, Sholuade. I'm the founder of a company called Black Valley. I had an unusual, journey into working in tech or working into the industry. First of all, I did a psychology degree, so very non-techy background. But my interest in psychology was more about behavior, motivation, and things around that. As a result of that, I started mentoring on the summer program and ended up working for that organization full-time. It's a charity that does like social integration, which is about bringing people from different backgrounds together. And hopefully by you doing that, you get them to understand each other better. I did that for 4 years. And then due to my work with schools on that, because we used to go out to schools and recruit young people to go on that program. An edtech company, education technology in London, wanted someone who has an understanding of UK schools to work in a business development manager role, and that was my introduction to technology. But last year, May, things changed a little bit for myself. So that image there is probably quite a disturbing one for most people in the room. So around last year, May, it was the murder of George Floyd. There were a lot of, what I call like statements being made by organizations, especially in the media. As a black person in the room, I was a bit frustrated because I felt that actually we've been here before. Something negative, something would happen that makes us feel, okay, we need to shift the conversation around race forward. But that conversation never really seemed to go anywhere. A few months down the line, or dare I say so, the media attention will shift away from that narrative, and then there will be another topic that's focused on. Out of that frustration, I wonder, okay, what can I do to move the conversation forward? And I guess that's kind of like the idea of how Black Valley is bettered, or what gave birth to Black Valley. But before I talk about that in a sec, why tech? Why do you want to tackle the issue of like stereotype, racism, and biases towards black people using tech? For me, that period of time signified what I call reactive. People were reacting to things that are happening. I think, speaking for myself or speaking to my friends, we felt like, actually, this thing has been happening for a while. We noticed these things as well. For me, then, it seems to me that actually, if we're not careful, what we're experiencing in terms of like the physical world, in terms of stereotype and biases, we'll start experiencing that in the world of technology. So technology is the future, and that future is here now. So when it comes to products, how those products are created, how we interact with those products, we need to make sure that product doesn't leave a particular demographic behind. But the danger is if people creating those products look the same way and have the same experiences, there'll be biases built into those products. I really believe tech can be a force for good. And the best way, to really make sure that industry, especially when we're going into like a metaverse world, now we're talking about NFTs and things like that, we need to make sure actually that world being created is inclusive of everyone, especially Black Valley. So that was kind of the motivation of why I felt we need to create something that help facilitate this thing that I call the Black Valley, disrupt the industry to make sure it represent black people. Again, I'll talk a bit more about this, about what we're trying to do later on. But essentially, we want to create equity in tech. I think that picture there represents what I mean by equity. People probably think, okay, well, why focus on black people as a demographic? Now, we're not saying to give us an unfair advantage. We're just making sure, actually level the playing field, make sure we have same access to our white counterparts in terms of creating access. Yeah, I think the technology didn't want to cooperate. I was touching on some key issues there. People with more power than I am said, okay, good, this is too good information for us to let the masses know. Where was I? So about creating equity, making sure we level the playing field is what Black Valley is about. Making sure black people have the same access in terms of networking, getting into the industry, or starting their own tech-related startup. Specifically, we do that by mentoring community events and workshops. But I don't really want to focus more about our work, but I want to talk about, some of the challenges within the industry. Okay, so I think I'm going to play around with the mouse so it doesn't switch every now and then again. But this talks about how our program works, but again, I'm going to avoid that first, but talk about the current challenges that technology face. I feel like a lot of people in this room probably know a lot more about those challenges than I do, because you guys are what I refer to as techies, and like I said, I come from a non-technical background. I guess we'll look at the workforce first. So this is a statement made around the same time that those events were happening by the CEO of Wells Fargo, which is like a very big complaint about, there's a limited pool of talent from black people to recruit from. I think, a lot of debates was about that statement, either you're on the left side or the right side. For me, that's not really the issue here. For personal opinion is, when there is an issue, you have to look at something to address it, right? So that was his opinion. But for someone, that I opt to say that statement without offering a solution, to me was, maybe kind of like highlights the systematic challenges facing black people in entering that industry, because it kind of like almost focused on lack of talent rather than actually what is the barriers stopping those, talents that are out there to be more represented within the industry. An area that I want to talk about first is like biases in AI. One of the key things that came out when I was doing my research around this thing, is that there are other issues that we could see, and those issues are problematic in terms of how we live and experience the world. The first one is, let me just throw this in the chain again. The first one is predpol. So predpol is a criminal system in America that's meant to predict what area a crime is likely to occur next. And that sounds like a good idea, right? Makes police job easier. You're more likely to, put the force in the right place. But actually, when this technology was evaluated, it found out that it was sending people to areas of ethnic minority, regardless of the crime rate. So there was something about the way this system was built that made it biased to ethnic minorities. Another incident that happened in South Africa, where a digital soap dispenser didn't recognize a dark skin. So two people went into a restaurant, they finished eating, went into the bathroom to wash their hands. The friend noticed that he put his hand out and the soap wasn't dispensing. However, his white friend, did the same thing and, soap dispensed. And when this was tested again, it was because actually when the company that made this product were testing it, they didn't test it on a dark skin. So something quite simple that probably was an oversight. I'm not saying this company was racist, simple oversight, but actually the impact was very, very significant. Another point that probably hits a bit more close to home is forced facial recognition. Most people have an iPhone. I have an iPhone. We use our face recognition. Something quite simple that shouldn't be a luxury. You should be able to open your face with the iPhone. But actually, facial recognition is more likely to recognize you if you're a white male, 99% more accurate. That drops down to 35% if you're a black female. Shockingly as well, I was sharing a story with my auntie about, African background. When you're telling people, what do you do for a living now? I'm just trying to explain to her why I do. So I'm running this thing called Black Valley. Oh, so what are you trying to achieve? I explained to her our goals. Oh, that's a really good idea. I was shocked. And then she then explained our experience of my niece was going to have a 12-year-old was going to have a passport photograph taken. And at the stage of that, when she was taking a passport photograph, the machine kept asking her to close her mouth. Because it didn't recognize, a black person's lips. He assumed that she had her mouth open, but that's probably, the structure of her face, right? So something quite simple, and this is a system that the British, passport photography company is using, right? And you can imagine the impact that could have had on a young girl in terms of self-image. So we could see then why this is important and an issue to make sure people that are creating products reflect the community that they or the environment they're creating that product for. For me as well, I guess to kind of make sure it's not all negative and focus on some of the other stuff that we could do or change, especially people in this room. There are a lot. I think I posed that question about the CEO of Wells Fargo about what are the lack of talent in the room. There are probably three key things that I think speaking to or after creating a community like Black Valley and speaking to people within that community, representation matters. Seeing someone that looks like you makes that role more visible to you and feel like you feel at a place in that. So one of the barriers is actually there isn't enough black people working in the industry in the first place. So it doesn't feel like that environment is for us. Again, lack of information and lack of knowledge. The more I speak to people working with tech, the more I realize actually most people didn't take the traditional route. Most people kind of fell into it, spoke to someone, or someone actually gave them a chance in their first role, and then they went on to excel based on that. Actually, if we're not making sure that people from maybe not our close-knit of circle have the same access to how to get started, then that problem will carry on. And then once ethnic minority, especially black people, start working within your industry, are you making that work environment conducive? Are you making that work environment allowing them to bring their full self to that place. Those are probably the three key things I would say, as a key takeaway for people within this room around that. The other point that I want to talk about is, opportunities for change. Mainly, these three things here probably apply to less people in this room, but actually, you guys are what we probably call the agent of change. Like you could actually help amplify, how to make a difference. So for us, that first look like if you are a technical person creating this product or doing things like around data, around AI, or your workplace is doing something around that. Do challenge what data is being used. Do make sure what's being created is not created for the same sort of people, and it is an inclusive thing being created. Again, a bit biased, but we want you to help amplify what we're doing. So Black Valley is about creating this inclusive environment that supports Black talent to thrive within the industry. So if you want to join that, please come join us as a mentor. I guess that kind of brings me to the end of my talk. Hopefully that wasn't too rushed, and I'll open some room for some more questions. But the key takeaway is, people talk about technology being the future, right? That future is here right now. In our daily life, we will have an interaction with tech, and more so as the world evolves. And the challenge is, do we want everyone to be brought along in that journey, or do you want to leave a certain people behind? And the danger is, if we don't tackle this issue now, the George Floyd incident or the issues that people of color like myself are complaining about will be quite minute in comparison to what we experience when we come to data and digital biases. Thank you for listening to my talk, and that's why we need a Black Valley. Any questions? Thank you.
Have you had much success working with companies to increase accessibility? You find that companies are quite amenable?
Yeah, good question. I think that's a very, I probably try and take a holistic approach. I think companies, since May last year and since the movement around Black Lives Matter, I think companies are really genuinely willing to make a change. But what I find is it takes quite a long time for organizations to move. So we have conversations with big organizations without naming them, some of your top 4 companies. And actually, because of how big they are, it takes a lot of time for them to make change. I think there's a genuine desire to try and do something and make a change. The other challenge that I see sometimes is what that change looks like. For some companies, actually, it's quite one level, which is, can we access your community to get people into careers? But actually, the problem is quite deeper than that. You want to engage with the community. You want to increase that talent pool that I was speaking about. You want to look at your workforce as well, the talents at the workforce. How do you make sure they're progressing within your workforce? So I think there's probably a whole more that companies could do. Are they engaged? Yes. Is there more they could do? Yes. I hope that answers your question. Hi.